صح شربتكم الناس الكل مرحبا بكم. Welcome everyone to this live talk, first live talk of this week. I'm really honored today and happy to host my friend from JCI. He's international expert. He's from Denmark. Second guest from Denmark, I hosted Lars Hasland for the first talk. And now I'm receiving Kjaer Nielsen from Denmark, who is international expert of happiness. Also, he was JCI national president in Denmark in 2011. We met together in 2009 in the World Congress of JCI here in Tunisia. And today we talk about the happiness office, how to install the happiness office, the culture, all that trending topics now for HR leaders. So Jon is an engineer, and he has a master's degree in engineering. Actually, he's delivering leadership and happiness speeches for more than 900 companies in all over the world. And also, he has inspired more than 40,000 people also around the world. Jon, thank you for accepting my invitation. Thank you a lot for this JCI brotherhood and JCI spirit. Thank you for sharing.
It's so great to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's great.
So, Jon, let's start our topic because you are a Superman of happiness, and I would like to know more about happiness. Let's start with a simple question. What is happiness for you, Jon?
Well, happiness is a subjective thing. So I could ask you, do you feel happy, right? And you could maybe answer it in two ways. There is, how do you feel like right now? So we can talk about your emotions in the present moment. But I could also ask, are you happy this year? And then you would start reflecting on how things are in general. And so psychologists talk about subjective well-being. Really is the only way they can measure happiness is actually by asking people. And so they would generally use a scale that could be 1 to 10 or 1 to 100. And you ask a lot of people, and then you can start comparing. So it really is a subjective experience and a subjective emotion. And so that's sort of the basis. But what I'm really working with is happiness in the workplace, which is, of course, slightly different, but it does spring from the same psychological states. But yeah, you can say many words. You can talk about happiness. You can talk about well-being. You can talk about employee engagement or motivation. Are you thriving? There's so many words you can use. But we can't get around that it is actually a subjective thing. And you can only compare people when you then do some kind of examination and then compare groups of people. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer to this question.
Yeah, I see. And what are the secrets of keeping smiling, especially during the confinement, because it's a crisis period? And I would like to know how to keep this motivation and to keep smiling. Just your case here.
Yeah, so definitely at this strange time we're living through right now, keeping your good spirits is, I believe, important. And there's a choice there, right? So that's something psychology has discovered for the past 2-3 decades, is we can actually influence how we think. So you can choose to look at this situation as something terrible, or you could choose to look at it, not ignoring it, but trying to find the bright side, ways to strengthen this, or looking at opportunities, or looking to the future, how will we get out of this? That leaves you in two different mindsets, right? One can almost be compared to being depressed, which of course can be a clinical state. A lot of people are sort of feeling maybe a bit depressed without actually being depressed, but they feel down and they don't want to take action. And that's inching you closer to that state where you don't feel that there's any hope. Like if actually depressed people feel that that this is a constant, this won't ever go away, and and it's all my fault, and it will be like this forever, then you're trapped in a depressed state. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're just in your sofa or your couch feeling like this sucks, that's not really being depressed as such, but it's how most people would experience maybe a bad day, right, as not having any energy. And so for me, it's almost like, I guess it's a habit. I don't want to feel down. So I'm always in any situation looking to opportunities. and also taking action. Trying to just do something that will cause me to have a better day. Take you out of that
But
mindset.
moving from a fixed mindset to open mindset,
Right.
it's not really suitable or like affordable for everyone.
Well, I'm not sure I agree on that, because there's no real cost to it. One criticism I do hear is, well, I feel down for a reason, and if I give up that, then it's like almost like somebody has won, and so I insist that I must feel down. This is what happens in a job. Like, if your boss mistreats you and you're down, you have a problem, well, then if you choose not to be sad about it, it's almost like your boss has won. But no, that's actually not the case. You don't want to have both the problem your boss gave you and be down about it. How about just having the problem and then being in a constructive mindset instead, and then fixing it? Right? It's like, unless you're actually clinically depressed, then feeling sad about it and feeling that there's nothing you can do here is actually a choice.
It's actually a choice. That's nice. Actually, we have in our world, in Emirates, happiness ministry, and they're working to provide all the comfort to citizens there. But why happiness at work in 2020?
So I live in Denmark, and here in Scandinavia, northern part of Europe, and you've probably seen these international surveys and reports that come out saying that we are happy countries, and people here are doing quite well. So subjective well-being is pretty high, and you measure it on a countrywide level. People are doing quite well, and so it's been important here for decades. And happiness at the workplace has been a focus point since the 1970s. Right? There are national institutions working to improve the quality of workplaces, to ensure that people are well off and nobody's mistreated. Also, historically, we've had very strong unions ensuring worker rights for 100 years. And so we've gotten to a situation where we are doing pretty well, but it's because we actually think that is important, right? And so that is an open discussion here, and that you can actually talk about. We should have a good workplace. It matters.
Is it a government strategy, or is it just in the business field?
We don't have a happiness minister or something like that. It is sort of like it's a shared mindset in the whole country, and the whole region, that it matters how you're doing. Like, are you happy at work is a completely ordinary question, right? I remember when I traveled to Dubai 3.5 years ago, and I was there for 2 weeks. And I didn't meet anybody who was actually happy with their job. And when I described my situation as being a consultant in creating happier workplaces, some of them had a hard time understanding what I actually meant, as if the idea that you could be happy with your job was so foreign to them. Job seemed like a necessity, something you had to do for money. But my point is, okay, here we have job A, it pays you money. Okay, here we have job B. You do the same thing, pays you the same money, but you feel better. Which one do we want, right? And so then
second one,
relevant, right?
Yeah, that's nice. Here in Tunisia, we have some statistics. Maybe more than 70% of people are not really happy in the workplace because maybe they didn't make the choice of the job.
Well, honestly, some jobs suck, right? There are tough jobs, and you can be in a tight spot, and you can't fix everything. Of course, it's not just the mindset. I do believe we are in a luxury position. Like, our work week is shorter than many countries. On average, people here work, I think, maybe around 35 hours. There are other countries where people work six days a week, and maybe 1 week holiday, and here it's 5 days a week, and days are shorter, vacation is more. So of course that does mean something, right? And it's also about, do you have a living wage, or where are you on that scale? But around two out of three people here are happy with their jobs, and that's something else than the numbers you just quoted.
I see. We have a question from Morocco. Kjaer said, is there a difference between choosing the job you love or love the job you do?
Right. That's back to the whole idea of can you actually make a choice there? I do tend to look at it that you should see what you can do to love the situation you're in. Maybe love is a big word here, but the job you do, if you can find a satisfaction there, that will improve things in the same job. Obviously, there is something to be said about also going for jobs that you wish you could have, that you maybe dream about, the dream job. That is about finding. There's this model of do you have a job or career or a calling that you probably, I'm sure you know. So if you can find your calling and go for that, obviously that's good. But actually, I do believe that a calling can come from the job you have. But it's actually about finding the engagement. Like Csikszentmihalyi talks about flow since I think 1977. And flow can come in so many experiences. It can come from playing computer games, and it can come from your job. It can come from podcasting and being in the moment. And it doesn't have to be a dream job, but if you actually can experience flow, that is you're fully engaged with what you're doing and not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow, that will actually increase your personal happiness in your life. Not at that moment, because you don't even notice it. Right? You get out of your own head, and then actually after, and then you actually enjoyed it, and you do a better job also. So it's about really the job you have, trying to find out how can I actually engage myself fully here. Am I challenged in the right amount? Right? If it's too challenging, it can maybe be stressful, and if it's not challenging enough, then you become bored, and the day is very long.
I see. I see. We have a question also from Yusuf Santini. What kind of work conditions offered by employers in Denmark to enhance happiness at work?
Well, obviously, there's reducing friction. So flexible hours is quite common for at least for many office workers. So you can fit your work with your private life also. It's especially important for people who have kids. People are paid well enough to not be in financial stress unless it's of their own making. Of course, also helps. But then there's I think most importantly, the dialogue between employees, the company, the boss, and the people is very frank and very open. We have very low hierarchies. So I know just from our neighbors in Germany, you say, actually say, no, Susan, that's a bad idea, right? So you're very direct, which means that people tend to maybe go for what they want and express it. And care is taken to see if we can adapt to the person, right? So it's about finding proper challenges for each person. Like some places they have formal interviews once a year. You talk about what kind of development plans you want. Some places it's every week, right? In a more informal setting.
I see.
You try to craft the job you actually want, right challenges and so on.
You were HR expert also, and you manage happiness office in one company before starting delivering speeches and trainings. What kind of return on investment? Because improving the workplace will cost a lot of money. So how can you explain to HR managers or CEOs that we have a real return on investment when we improve the workplace?
Right. So two things there. It's not necessarily that it costs a lot of money, because a lot of it is actually relational. So it's how do you behave around people. It's not necessarily things you buy. It's not perks. It's not salary. It's not just having foosball tables at the office that does it. It's really how you treat people. So the return on investment is massive, but hard to measure in a specific case. So actually, maybe this is luxury here. The companies I work with, they never demand that we prove that it works in the specific case, because they believe it would, and then we just do what we can. There's so many studies and case studies and science behind this, and I can name some of the benefits we know are there. Say, two of the very big expenses at workplaces is sick leave and employee turnover, how many people leave. And those numbers only go in one direction. If you actually get happiness in the company up, people are more engaged, they tend to be less sick. I talked to doctors that say we should be maybe 3% sick. That's about a week, a year, you're actually sick. But in some places they have like 0 sick days, and in other places it's up to 15%, meaning like 1 in 6 is not there every morning. Obviously, that's a huge cost, especially if you have to hire extra people. Employee turnover, people leaving, can be very costly. If you work in a knowledge-based company, the cost of replacing somebody can be up to a year's salary when you take all the hidden costs and loss of production and the training and so on. So if you can keep talent on, that's hugely important. Instead of I've been to workplaces where, I remember one place I met, there was 23 people there and only one person had been there a year. So imagine changing 22 out of 23 once in 1 year. That's very costly, and performance is obviously way down. So you don't want that. And then you go to other places. I remember going to Microsoft Denmark, their office here. They were awarded one of the best workplaces in Denmark by the Great Place to Work Institute. They're in so many countries, and they have their own reports and their own numbers. And so they were awarded best in their category here, and their employee turnover was like 2%. That means actually, on average, people will stay at Microsoft for 50 years, which actually becomes a problem because working with cutting edge technology, they want to hire fresh graduates, but there's no room because nobody's leaving. What do you do then? And so obviously those are huge benefits also, but also productivity goes up. We see people actually work faster, and they make fewer mistakes. Studies with computer programmers have seen that they're more engaged, they make fewer mistakes, they have to go back and redo things less frequently. And another study showed that actually the same group of people, if they added more hours, let's say instead of working 40 hours, you work 60 hours, then productivity would actually drop because the mental capacity cannot do that amount of load, right? Great Place to Work's own reports show that the happy companies, the ones that are rewarded best place to work, if you look at them over time, they grow faster than the competition and faster than the market. So there's so many studies showing that this is a benefit, but taking one workplace and proving that it works there is super complicated because, again, it's subjective and so many things would influence it. Let's say you decide that we measure this day, and then in 6 months we have to measure again, and you want to see a plus. But what if that day something negative happens, right? Top management decision or something with the competition or the market, and then you would see an effect. Actually, one study, I can't quote who this is from, but one study showed that if the manager bought people an ice cream in the morning, it would impact the numbers, right? So it's really hard to make things. So we just put that to the side and trust that it actually does work and there are benefits there, and then just go for it.
I collaborated with Microsoft here in Tunisia, so I know a little bit the workplace, but I'm curious to know what kind of workplace of Microsoft Denmark. Can you describe it a little bit?
Well, of course, you obviously know what the company does. The place itself is an office in Copenhagen, an open office with a very nice work environment, and as I described before, with very low power hierarchies. So everybody's on a first name basis. You can just walk in and out. The doors are always open. I knew that they are on the good side when it comes to salaries and perks and so on. So it is a nice place to work. But I know that people also appreciate that it is cutting edge and they're on the front line of the newest products and so on. But it is a place where people are treated well and people talk about it in good terms. I'm sure it should be similar to a Microsoft office in many other countries, except for, of course, the culture of the workforce and the leadership style of that country.
I see. Who can conduct this culture in the company? Is this the responsibility of the CEO, the manager, the HR manager? We don't know.
So there's this expression that culture drips down from the top. It's like if you have a leaky roof, everybody gets wet. So it doesn't matter how you think at the top, because it's about values and your worldview and so on. And so, but also it is lived in the front lines. So if you have a department with 20 people, what matters most to those 20 people is actually their direct manager, how that person behaves and acts, and their values matter so much. And if there's a conflict between what your boss says and does and what the company thinks, that's a huge problem. So we can't, if you have a company that really wishes the best for you and wants to create a fantastic environment, and they say they have all the right values, but then your own boss is maybe controlling, or somebody who likes to take credit and have a bathe in the sunlight of your work, then that becomes the main issue, right? And so that culture of, I would say, trust and openness and honesty are super important, and transparency. You have to realize, I think, that we are in a time of transparency. So if you're trying to hide it, then you will fail, because things are so open now. And also, as people, we are so good at seeing right through each other. And so if you try to hide things, you come off as fake, and that erodes trust. And so I do believe trust is a foundation, and perhaps that can actually be a reason why we're doing so well in this part of the world, because the Scandinavian countries are actually the countries in the world where people are most trusting, also of strangers. If you ask a Danish person, would you trust a random stranger on the street? I know that 9 out of 10 will say yes. So in Germany, just a few hours from here, it's less than half. And I heard that in Los Angeles is 1 in 16. And so that trust really matters with what you can do. So I don't know your numbers, but you could look that up for your own countries, and anybody watching the country you're in. What is the level of trust actually there with the people? That matters a lot as a foundation. But if
and how it comes, how it comes in Denmark. We know that Scandinavian countries are special. You have a special culture, but how you will be able to build such trust? Because I think that's the basics. If we have a society based on the trust relationships.
Well, I do believe it's born by individuals. So as a business owner, or as an employed leader, it is really about being open and genuine. So you could say to your people, I have the best intentions for you. I want us as a company to succeed, and you are the most important thing in us succeeding, and I want us to succeed together. And so I believe that it's my job as the manager to serve you, right? So I believe that best managers realize that they actually work for the people, whether it's 20 people or 200 people, they're actually doing the job. They're serving the customer, and the boss is actually there to make sure that they can do that even better, instead of thinking themselves as kings or captains of ships deciding everything. No, looking at it the other way. What can I do to help you succeed? And you honestly, you can't fake that. People will. It's transparent. So you actually have to want the best of people. If you start there, I believe you can shape a group, a company, a culture in that direction, and you can get far in a year or two. But you're always up as an exam, right? It's always a test. You can fail that test if you are shown to be dishonest, and we can't trust you, and you don't have our back, and so on. Yeah.
What are the limits of transparency in the company? Because people maybe are a little bit afraid to share all the information.
But obviously, and that's also an issue here. People are not that happy with sharing, like salaries. For of course, is like a bombshell, and most companies, people don't do that unless they're on a contract where everybody gets the same, and there's ladders and steps and so on. And so no, it's more about transparency in intentions. What are we actually trying to achieve here? A great enemy there in large companies is politics, like internal politics, people maneuvering for positions, one department against the other. And the larger the company, the more of a problem that actually is. So I'm sure you've experienced this also.
Sumaya said that happiness manager position is something trending actually in the companies. So what are the qualifications to be a happiness manager?
Well, yeah, I remember previously I had the title Chief Happiness Officer. It was something my business partner came up with, and I've seen several companies now use that exact same title. And so I would say it has to be a people person. It could be an HR position. Sadly, many places HR is more like HR legal, so they handle contracts and salaries and so on. Where I think it should be more focused on the personal development side, about skills, and giving people the opportunities they want and what their individual needs are and so on. So the places I've seen where there's a specific position with that task, it has to be somebody who reports directly to management and who has a seat at the table and can speak sort of on behalf of the well-being of the collective, of the group. Like, individuals can have needs, but groups have needs also, right? So a department or a company can have a certain need that needs to be met. And it's really about ensuring that you look at the human consequences of something, right? Maybe you can make a strategic decision that's good for the business, but what does this mean for the people? Just even considering that is foreign to some companies. I believe anything you should do should either be good for the company or for the customer or for you people, right? And if it's bad for one of them, one of the three, you should really have a good argument there. And sadly, too many CEOs just look at the numbers and ask what's good for business, which means what's good for business in the short term, because what's bad for people would actually be bad for business in the long term. So very short-term thinking can be an enemy of doing the right thing here.
I see. And is there any training for such position, or is it just an attitude or behavior, like developing the empathy and active listening skill, etc.?
But obviously, you could be a psychologist, or you could be a life coach. You could just be an experienced manager. I do one-day workshops to give people some simple tools for this position, but people will come from a background where they already maybe have some background in this. I know in Denmark, by law, large workplaces have to have a board of elected employees that can talk to management and discuss actually these issues about the state of the workplace and so on. And there are certain rules that need to be followed. And these receive trainings, and I've done workshops for some of them. A previous business partner of mine has an ambassadorship class he teaches, and he's had people from different countries travel and do that class. There's nothing, state sanctioned or anything large or formal here. I remember I went to the United States, and met a former Catholic priest who actually had this position in a very large energy company. And so he was like a corporate ombudsman. I describe him in my book, actually. So his job was being like the trusted person anybody could go to, and under confidentiality, and voice any grievance. And this guy would then have the ear of the boss, the top manager, to pass on any worries from the employee without giving it away. And so I think that was a very interesting approach also. So having that person there.
Let's discuss a little bit this issue, because I think that case is a little bit special. It depends also on people beliefs. So if people are not really religion oriented, maybe they will not trust such person.
Right. Yeah, you could say that. He wasn't employed there as a priest. That was just his background. So he was sort of a neutral person, a non-religious person there. But he had training in talking with people and having them confide in him and trust him and so on.
I see.
So we have here by law this system where there are elected officials from among the employees that you can then trust. So if you have to have a meeting with your boss that relates to your contract, then you can then have this representative come and join you and so on. But that's, again, it's mostly legal and ensuring your rights and so on. And it's not really to do with company culture. So I do believe it is a management issue, but having somebody appointed to a position to actually guard and look after the culture can be super strong. Like world famous case is Zappos.com, the American online store that They used to sell shoes, but now they sell all sort of stuff. And they were bought out by Amazon because they actually created something unique. They created a culture that can't easily be copied. I really recommend the book about Zappos. It's called Delivering Happiness by their CEO. Okay, and they have people that whose job it is to create a better workplace. I had their HR manager come to Denmark for a conference, along with the cruise ship director. That was an actual title, cruise ship director. The company in Las Vegas, which is in a desert, there's no water there. But the cruise ship director position was responsible for parties and corporate events. And so obviously they had many events to ensure. They said it was about community and about feeling that you belonged and that you were actually friends with the people you work with. And so the concept that if you ask people about how do you feel working about Zappos, they'll say it's the best place I ever worked and I have my best friends here and so on. And so that's really a case I can recommend people look into.
So if I understand, it's all about the mindset. It will start from the top management and it's going through to all the departments. I went to the two companies here in Tunisia, but I saw that they have something like fake happiness office, because I believe that the person may be appointed in that position is trying her best to create activities, etc., to maintain the energy and the happiness atmosphere in the company. But I don't believe that the settlement or the installation of the office was done correctly. So what is the process to install a real happiness office in the company?
Well, that is $1 million question, isn't it? Because I don't think there's not a manual for this. So I believe that shaping the culture of the workplace is the job of whoever is in charge, whether that's the CEO or the chairman of the board or the owner. And I believe it is the most important job. If you take care of the workplace and the people will take care of the business. And I believe that we are seeing that mindset more and more. People are recognizing that this is true. Maybe after it has been proven that, hey, there's return on investment here. So now even people taking an MBA will be confronted by this fact and know that it's not just the money and it's not just supply chain management and processes and lean and so on. It matters how people feel, how they're doing. They are not just resources, and 1 hour put in is not just an hour. You can sit with your Excel sheet and your project plan, and you have 6 months and 8 months and this much money, how much time it takes, and fitting the hours and the days and so on. But one day is not one day. It's the quality of that day. I'm sure you've experienced this. Like one good day can be better than a bad week. So it really matters your emotional state in that job. And you can't put that into a formula. It's really about the people, and that makes it a full-time job for whoever's in charge to make sure that those people are thriving there. And I believe that is possible in all jobs, but not for all people in all jobs. You have to have the right match, right? Like some people should not work with people; they should work with computers or machines. And some are great teachers, and some should never be near children. No, it's about obviously the right match.
So introverted persons and extroverted persons also. Kjaer said that what about being professional and having friends at work at the same time? Because it's a big issue also in the companies, how to maintain like hierarchy, respect, and distance, and of course having a friendly workplace.
Right, and this is something I've experienced really can differ a lot between countries. Here we're very informal in general in society, but I've known Danish leaders who have went abroad and then worked in different cultures and found that their approach doesn't actually work because being too friendly or too kind will then lead to a lack of respect, which is unfortunate. So that transition can be really, really hard and take a long time. And so that is really cultural dependent, what you can do there. So another way to look at it is also, you could look at, psychologists will talk about suffering. That's the opposite of being happy. Like, are you actually miserable? And so you can focus on alleviating suffering and making sure that people are not frustrated, stressed out, and so on, which will have negative consequences. And you can do that without being best friends with them, right? So you don't need this happy shared community culture that works some places. You can also just make sure that people are actually not miserable. That's some places that would help a lot, actually, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
You wrote a book about happiness titled Happiness at Work, available actually in Amazon. And I want to say that it will cost you just €3.45. I think it's a special price actually for the ebooks because about the confinement period. So it's a special price actually. We can take the opportunity. So Happiness at Work, you shared about 100 techniques. Would you like to choose a few of them and explain it, please?
Okay, yeah. So there's sort of three sections in the book. One is what can you do to just improve your own day, and some of it is related to mindset, but it's all about taking some form of action also. The next section is about what can you do for the people you work with. So that is as an employee, what can I do to the people around me, my coworkers, my colleagues, and finally, maybe the most heavy section is for bosses and anybody who can impact like everybody by changing the frame or the rules. The ombudsman I mentioned is actually in there as one tip. One I like is celebrating more, like publicly celebrating, and that is because humans have a built-in need for recognition. Like, we need to know that we are valuable and we are appreciated. Right? So we know this since, like, Maslow was one of the early guys to talk about this back in the 40s. And since then, we have 70 years of research showing that people actually want recognition and to know that they're valuable and that they contribute in a meaningful way. And so we should, in any culture, increase recognition. And of course, that would vary by what country you are in and so on. It's not just about monetary bonuses. It's actually, recognition is a psychological thing. And so it's actually about telling you that I appreciate your work. You're good at this live streaming. You ask very good questions. So that is recognition, right? And it should be personal. And I believe that any manager should do more of that. And actually anybody should do more of that to the people they spend time with. And you will realize that that's actually a way to have it returned to you. And then I mentioned celebration. That's where you actually do something public, and celebrate that something good has happened. And it can be, of course, some kind of achievement, a deadline, a milestone, a project that succeeded. It can be a sales target or whatever. But be careful not to fall into that trap where we just celebrate an award like the top salespeople. Because anytime you have a company where there are top salespeople, then you have a lot of support staff who are actually just as valuable. You just don't see their name on contracts. They don't do the fancy meetings and so on. But without them, things would fall apart. So sometimes it's about celebrating actually the quiet heroes. So another approach to that is, there's a tip called Appreciation Day, which is like a personal thing, where you decide that, hey, my coworker, George, he's also so quiet, but he's super important. Let's tell him. Right. And so you print T-shirts where there says, George, our hero. Everybody wears the George T-shirt on the same day, and you take him out for lunch, and you cancel your meetings, and you help him out all day long, and he'll remember that forever. Right. And it's actually telling people that you love them in some form of way. Right. So creating memorable experiences, that's what they're good at with Zappos also, is really important. And it is the small things, like a year. We tend to plan like in quarters or years, But a year is just somewhere between 220 to 260 work days, just like today.
Yeah.
So it's actually about what do you do to impact today, right? What is a small thing you could do to make today better for yourself or somebody else? And if you make it better, that's the secret. If you make it better for somebody else, your day will be better, right? Because we actually find joy in other people's happiness. And especially if you're actually in the room with them and you can positively impact them, that will show off in their physiology. Your mirror neurons will copy that. It's like when you give somebody flowers, they're happy, you're happier. And so that's actually a shortcut to being happier, is making someone else happy. And we can do that at work. That's the whole point here.
What about
Yeah.
the team building, which is something also trending, and companies are trying to create 3 days or 2 days team building per year, just to gather all of people and to make some activities together.
Right.
Is it something impactful for developing happiness at work?
Yes, definitely, if you do it in the right way. So there's this like a whole industry, and there are companies set up that only do team building events, games, indoor, outdoor, adventure, parties, dancing, whatever you want to do, right? And so I think the important thing here is that it brings people together and not tear them apart. And so any competition-based team building, that tends to make me nervous, because you don't want to win. You don't want your team to win over another team that's actually also your team, right? So it's more about
dangerous.
And it actually just shared experiences can be enough. Because if you have a shared experience, even like here, cooking classes are popular these years. Just cooking together with your coworkers actually creates a good experience together, and it shows personality also, and you become closer. And the closer you are, the more you know each other, the more inclined you are to actually understand each other's needs, and the willingness to help out goes up. And so anything you can do as a shared positive experience, I believe is good. So don't fall for some game where you have to beat each other. That would miss the point, I think. But super valuable.
Amazing point.
I try to encourage every workplace to have some kind of event or getaway, preferably with an overnight stay, at least once a year. It's super valuable if you can do that. Really brings people together.
Yeah, but competition is very dangerous for people during the team building, because we are thinking that we are creating something like team building, but we are dividing the team after the team building, because
exactly.
I think that they bring the we will have winners and losers, and they will bring all the psychology in negative way or a positive way with them into the office for tomorrow. So maybe it will harm the relationships.
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. We talked about psychology, but also actually in workplaces, they are working more on improving the employees' health also. So what about that? What about that?
Obviously, that's also a big thing here. And your physical well-being and your health is of course connected to your general well-being. And so creating, of course, it starts with safe and sound work conditions, especially if you're in an environment that could actually be dangerous. But it's more than that. It's also if you eat at the company, like there's a shared cantina or something, a buffet lunch, as some places have. Well, then you start to care that it's actually healthy food. It's good food. Some companies start to build gyms. You can work out after hours. Some companies actually have decided, no, you can actually work out during work hours. I talked to one CEO, I think he's mentioned in the book also. They decided that every day, the half hour before lunch, they would go on a run together, everybody who wants to join. So it's during work hours, they go for a jog, and then back, quick shower, get dressed, and then it's lunch. And they found that total productivity during the day did not fall. They took out half an hour, but they believe they got that hour back. right? Because people were more awake, more sharp, and better able to do their job. And so I think that's the newest trend within health, is actually realizing that we could do this at the office. You could have a yoga class for everybody who wants to. That's the first thing in the morning, and so on. Obviously, many places they won't do that in during work time. Okay, fine, just do it the half hour before, but have the setting, the opportunity to people to self-organize those things would really mean a lot.
Let's see. Muad from Morocco said that in my company, we have such an internal network called GFN, composed by employees having less than 7 years of experience. And we are organizing many cultural, spiritual, and entrepreneurial events, team buildings, and TED Talks. And this is increasing the level of happiness among a lot of our colleagues. This is a great experience.
Yes. One of the 100 chapters is called, I think it's Show Your Strength or something. I can't remember the translation. It's about having events where you give people the chance to lecture for their coworkers, just like a TED Talk, right? And this could be like a Friday thing before the weekend, or whenever, when the end of the week is for you, agree to, okay, let's meet up for half an hour. There's a seminar. And because everybody is an expert at something, so everybody can lecture about something, and it doesn't even have to be a job. Maybe you're a technician, but you're actually very interested in history, and you could prepare a lecture. Or you're a great chef, and so you could do something about cooking. Or you're into Elvis Presley, whatever it is, and giving your knowledge to other people is a way to both open their horizons and bring people closer together.
It's a kind of activities which is very inspiring also. What are the other activities that you can recommend to us for the company with a low cost for CEOs, etc., that can maintain and create a happiness atmosphere?
So low cost. Okay. I think people should really make an effort to really get to know each other. And this has no cost associated with it. And so I always encourage people to meet up, like privately, visit each other's homes, families, go to a soccer match or something, right? At work, you can organize like a potluck lunch where everybody, let's have a shared lunch. Instead of bringing your own lunch, like bring one thing for a group, and everybody does the same. Then you'll have that experience, right? Whenever there's a major sports event, do it together, right? Obviously, there's all of those are canceled this year, but hanging out for a soccer tournament or the finals of the Tour de France or whatever you're into, as Oscar nights is popular also, and everybody dresses up in tuxedos and dresses and watches the Oscars together, you know. So it's just about, it takes some time to organize these things, but you don't really need money. Are things you can do.
The challenge is that how to maintain also the happiness, because we can create activities, we can invent like a team building event or something like that, but it's a punctual in the timeline, it's a punctual point or event. How to maintain the energy, how to maintain the activity, and people are happy, because as you said when in the beginning, that it's a subjective thing that we cannot really measure, and it depends on the conditions, on the financial situation of the colleague, etc. So it's a little bit hard to maintain the same energy, the motivation for every day.
Right. So you have to look more deeply at the individual needs for people in their careers. And so I really recommend Martin Seligman's work in positive psychology. His most recent book is called Flourish. I think it's in many languages now. And he has this 5-step model, the PERMA model, which is the first P stands for positive emotions. So these are most of the things we've just discussed are things that would increase your moment-to-moment experience. And if that's just your goal, you want to be happier now, well, okay, eat great food or get drunk, whatever is your thing. But that's sort of missing the point, because you could actually do far better by adding the other ones. And one of them is engagement. And that's back to Csikszentmihalyi's flow. And so that's really finding what is it actually that ticks in you, right? And so it's about finding the right challenges. And so that's something you could do, as you should do as a company. Make sure that everybody is engaged, meaning they have challenging work. And so that can only come out in a dialogue about where are you now? You need new challenges. What's the next step for you? How could you grow? How can we put some pressure on so that you would have to stretch a bit, but not so much that you feel incompetent and you can't do this and that's causing you stress? The third part is this relationship part. Like the quality of relationships, positive relationships matter in your quality of life. You can see that like people who are lonely have increased mortality. So people really need to belong. And so many of the ideas we've just discussed now are things that bring people together. And that increases quality of life also. But it's also, besides that, it's reducing friction and reducing things that could be considered negative. Say, at a workplace, usually there's 1 out of 20 that can be a real hard ass, excuse my French, somebody who's hard on other people or just whines and complains all the time, talks bad about the customer or the market and whatever. It could be either because they're chronic pessimists or they've had some poor experiences and that's caused them to give up. And they've built a culture around themselves where as long as I'm the victim, at least I'm something. And they hold on to that to the detriment of everybody else. And I see that as a very hard conversation. And far too many companies accept that there is someone negative and we don't do anything about it. And the costs are huge. So you don't need to focus on dinners and football and all that. If you just focus on removing or fixing the people who are actually ruining everything, right? I've done surveys myself where with forms and many questions. And one of my questions is, last time you had a bad day at work, why was it a bad day? And the number one response I get is whining and complaining from the people I work with. So a negative it's not, it can feel like this is a negative company, but usually it's 2 out of 20 that are root cause of this, right? Just like you can have a positive ambassador who is responsible for this being a great place and you don't want to lose that person, you can also have a few people that you should actually lose. Or you should make them realize that this is poor behavior and we need to fix it. So that's hugely important. Just to finish up that 5-step model I was going into, obviously the M stands for meaning, that people want to do something meaningful. And that doesn't even have to be, that's okay then if it's not fun. But this is important, right? If something is the right thing to do, then it doesn't really matter that much. And you see this from all your volunteer work also. That's why people join NGOs and causes. It's the right thing. It's engaging and it's fun. I don't even get paid, but it's what I want to do, right? And I'll stay up late or get up early because this is the right thing. And the last bit is the A in PERMA stands for achievement. And that's basically kicking the ball, scoring a goal. It feels great, right? We want to achieve something. So everybody should be able to achieve something in the job you're at. So if you're, so this is a problem in many jobs. Actually, right now during this lockdown, like half the world is sitting at home wondering what to do. And so for many people, we have lost the ability to achieve something at this moment. And this can be a source of huge frustration. You're caught with your family. You love your family, but spending full time with them and without having the chance to go out and slay dragons during the daytime, that's actually a problem then. And then your well-being goes down. And so we can attack it in all these areas. But I really like this model because I think it can explain all behavior. Like, why do you do what you do? You do it either because it feels great or because you get to do it with people who you really want to do it with, or it's a chance to use your skills and engage yourself, or it's deeply meaningful, or you get to kick ass and score a goal, or it's a combination of all those.
I agree.
the people who then lose their jobs and become unemployed, they can lose the source of all 5 of those. They're just stuck at home with computer games and food, and that's not really a life. Right?
Nice model. Last question coming from Aza, joining what you said. She said, how to deal with pressure done by managers not according importance for good, positive, skilled people, and are often negative.
Right. So yeah, definitely some managers, if I get this right, don't recognize the huge value of having the right, positive, constructive people and what that matters for the group, and they don't know the impact of having the negative people in the group. Obviously, it's really hard to fix someone else, and especially if it's your boss, as a manager, it can really hard to fix that person. Sometimes when I grow a bit tired, I say, "Oh, just quit." Obviously that's not always that easy for people. I do have like a personal. I have my record is I've quit several jobs quite quickly, because I don't want to deal with a tough situation. I just get sad when I see people that are stuck for years and years in a negative situation, and they're not in the position to fix it. So I would say the job with managers is to open their eyes for the importance of how people are actually doing and the culture in the group and so on, and having them see the negative impact from some people and what's actually the cost of that. And so that's back to the openness and honesty. Employees should also feel that they can talk to their manager about these issues. And hopefully if you do that in a constructive way, it helps to bring solutions also. Then busy managers are more interested in listening to you, right? So you're not just whining about it, but you actually see a problem and you have an idea of what we could do. But their eyes might not be open to it, and then there's very little you can actually do. If that's
I see.
question for it, yeah.
Amazing. Walid said, Mary Kay Muller book, Taking Care of Me, The Habits of Happiness Changes My Life. Also, I will recommend you to read Jan's book. So thank you so much, Jan Kjaer Nielsen, for this opportunity, for accepting my invitation. The stage is yours. I want to give you the opportunity also to talk about your newsletter, because you started the English version of your newsletter, and also about your book and activity. So the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so I've been sharing my advice now for 14 years since I quit my job in HR. And my English site is happyways.com, and the podcast is actually also called Happy Ways in one word. I think there's 34 episodes in English now, including a recording of my TED Talk. And my newsletter is something I've been doing weekly now for 2.5 years. But I did it only in Danish, and I kept getting requests from people, hey, could you do this in English? Also from people in Denmark, because we have a lot of international companies. Like maybe one in 5 seminars I do, even here, is in English. And so I finally decided, okay, I should start doing it in 2 languages. And so it's out every Monday. I aim for an email that can be read in 3 minutes. And with each week, something specific people can use. And so that's also on happyways.com/Monday, because it's called Magic Monday. And so you can sign up there. And also actually, that will also send you a 30-page ebook called The Happy Dozen, with tools and tips and things you can do actually tomorrow already. So people are very welcome to sign up. And they can also always write me with questions. Sometimes if I get a question, I will then use that question as an answer in a coming email. I'll try to answer everybody. And I also sometimes do Q&As on my podcast. So people are welcome to reach out.
Thank you so much. And what about the book? The book is titled Happiness at Work, 100 Tips. Yes.
Here we are.
This is the book, yeah?
It's in Danish and English. I did translate it to German, but it's still in a drawer and not published. And so it's print and ebook on Amazon, and actually also as an audiobook. So Audible has it, and that comes with a Prime membership, I think, on Amazon, but you can just get it also there. If you have an iPhone, you're on iTunes, Apple Books, I think the audiobook is also there. So yeah, I have a subscription with Audible where it's included. I don't know. People have so many different solutions.
Very nice. I want to thank you a lot, Kjaer Nielsen from Denmark, international expert, HR expert also, and specialist in happiness at work. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share a lot of information. Thank you for your generosity. And I want to say also to people that this is a JCI spirit, because this is a common organization between us, Junior Chamber International. So I want to thank you again. And as we say in JCI, see you somewhere in the world.
I hope we can travel very soon again, and I will see you somewhere. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you so much. And see you soon in another live talk. Bye-bye.